Citroen was the first mass market manufacturer to bring the concept of coupe SUV to India, a trend that was later followed by Tata Motors with the Curve. Since then, Citroen hasn't been able to generate strong sales for the Basalt in Indian market, even though it's a genuinely capable car today. I'm going to walk you through its every aspect and I'm going to talk about its main USP. One thing Citroen is globally known for, and I'll also compare the car with its rivals so you know exactly whether you should put your hard earned money onto this car. So, let's begin with the exterior. Basalt has a typical coupe silhouette with a sloping roofline, although from certain angles and proportions it can almost look like a sedan. Up front, it houses a projector LED headlamps along with LED fog lights. Front parking sensors are missing, which is a bit disappointing, but it does get a front parking camera to make up for it. At the back, the coupe SUV theme continues, though Citroen has used halogen bulbs for the tail lamps, which feels like a bit of cost cutting on their part. Now let's check out the boot carrying capacity, and it has a capacity of 470 liters, which makes it genuinely practical for family road trips and hauling heavy luggage. Now, let's start with the rear seats of the Basalt. The rear bench has good cushioning that's neither too soft nor too stiff, which should result in less fatigue on longer drives. It also gets under thigh extensions that provide extra support on your under thighs. There's a pretty good amount of legroom too, although due to sloping roofline, headroom is a bit constrained for taller passengers. Now, let's hop into the front seat and talk about features. This car comes in three trim levels: U, Plus, and Max. The top spec Basalt is now loaded with a lot of kit. It gets a auto dimming IRVM, a wireless phone charger, a 360-degree parking camera, ventilated front seats, front ambient lighting, a 10.24-inch touchscreen infotainment system with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, 6 airbags as standard, and keyless entry with passive entry. That sounds like a solid list, but a few rivals still manage to pack a little bit more at this price point. Also, one glaring omission is the lack of sunroof, which has practically become a must have feature in the Indian market. And it's a bit surprising that Citroen has skipped it. Now, let's take a closer look at the 360-degree parking camera. The camera quality is average at its best, though it does get the job done. Unfortunately, you can't switch between view modes directly from the touchscreen. Instead, you need to press a physical button on the driver's side to change the view, which feels a little outdated. Overall, though it's a comfortable, well laid out cabin where everything is within easy reach, that being said, it's not the most premium feeling interior when you compare it to the rivals. Citroen has also cut costs in few areas. For instance, you don't get any rubber insulation lining on the doors, which is a small yet a noticeable miss. Now, let's get behind the wheel and find out how this car actually drives. And one thing you notice immediately is the gearbox. It's an AC source 6-speed automatic that feels smooth in daily driving conditions. The steering is a touch on the heavier side, but it is still light enough to manage comfortably in the city. The Basalt is genuinely easy to drive in town and its dimensions are well suited to Indian roads and traffic conditions. The car is offered with two engine options and two gearbox options. First, there's a 1.2-liter naturally aspirated petrol engine paired with a 5-speed manual gearbox, which produces 82 bhp and 115 Newton meters of torque. Then there's a 1.2-liter turbo petrol engine which makes around 110 horsepower and 190 Newton meters of torque. With the manual gearbox and paired with an automatic, torque goes up slightly to 205 Newton meters. Overall, performance is strong and highway overtakes are simply not an issue. There is a bit of turbo lag lower down the rev range, but once you are past that, there is a satisfying surge of power and torque. The mid-range is strong and car feels genuinely peppy to drive thanks to a favorable power to weight ratio. It weighs around 1250 kg, which contributes to its lively performance. 0 to 100 takes place around 11.5 seconds, which is fairly brisk time for this segment. And being a 3-cylinder engine, you can feel a bit of vibration inside the cabin, especially at idle and low speeds. The engine isn't the most refined sounding unit you'll find, which is fairly typical for a 3-cylinder motor. But as you build up speed, things do smooth out considerably. Now, let's talk about the suspension, which is Citroen's signature USP, because this is where Citroen truly shines. This car has very soft suspension setup that soaks up bumps without any hesitation. As a result, it handles potholes with real ease. It also runs on high profile tires, which further aids the plush ride quality. You genuinely don't have to slow down much for bad patch of road. This is by far one of the most comfortable cars in its segment. So, if you are looking for a car with best suspension setup under 20 lakhs, the Basalt should be right at the top of your consideration list. Braking performance is good too, although it only gets rear front disc brakes at the, it only gets front discs and drums at the rear. Even so, the car comes to a stop within fairly short distance, which adds to the overall confidence behind the wheel. Now, let's come to the conclusion. Citroen hasn't been able to do particularly well with the Basalt or with any other car in its India portfolio for that matter. The brand's service network is still fairly limited, though it's gradually improving. The lack of strong after-sales support in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities is a big reason why Citroen hasn't been able to make a bigger impact in India. Additionally, the coupe SUV body style itself isn't hugely popular here, since Indian buyers tend to prefer a more conventional SUV silhouette rather than a coupe SUV silhouette, which is also part of the reason why Tata Curve hasn't sold in massive numbers either. With that being said, if you are in market for the most comfortable car in the segment, one that will genuinely glide over bad roads and potholes without breaking a sweat, this Citroen Basalt genuinely deserves your consideration. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section which car should I review next. I'll see you in the next one.